Hi, hello, and welcome. I have been going through a little bit of a heartbreak, and it has caused me some emotional distress. And so, one thing that has always helped me get through it is crochet or knitting and ASMR videos. My favorite kind of ASMR videos are the old school, low quality phone ASMR videos. Not the one with high production value and speakers. So I thought I could talk a little bit about what I'm going through. Maybe talk a little bit about how I got into knitting and crochet. And I thought maybe everyone can enjoy the natural sounds that are involved with knitting. It's a lot of good clacking. So, what is going on with me? Well, I have had someone in my life on and off for about a year, and the saga never seems to quite end. It's just been a circle going round and round and round. And me and this person were never fully committed. It was very Ken when the Kens took over Barbie Land. Long distance, non-committal girlfriend. Although I was not long distance. Long term, more like, because we have been in each other's lives for over a year. And this person made me feel really special because I have been dealing with a lot of self-conscious, just not a good perception of self, basically. And this person made me feel seen when I haven't felt seen in a very, very long time. So I stuck through it because in my mind, this person was worth it, and I kept hoping that the situation would change, and it didn't. It did not. And despite everything, as stereotypical and corny as it might sound, I have no ill will towards this person. I'm not angry. I just feel a little sad. And you know what? I do feel a little angry sometimes. But I'm coming to terms with the fact that it's okay to feel what I'm gonna feel. It's perfectly natural. It happens. So I had to make the decision to finally, once and for all, put this to rest officially. And it hasn't been easy, even though I knew the situation wasn't serving me anymore. it was still difficult because I grew to enjoy this person. So, speaking of which, when I am going through a hard time or not feeling well, crochet and knitting have been there for me, which is how I got started in the first place. If I could put this thing. So, one day, about 3 years ago, I was sitting in my room, plagued with some insomnia, and I was feeling very hyper and upset and just not in a good place mentally. So I started to look up information about how to make yourself habits for good brain health, good mental health, and all of it was saying that learning a new skill or hobby, something that you're not very familiar with, is really good for your mental health and for your brain health, to learn new things. So I quite literally just Googled hobbies. What kind of hobbies are popular? What hobbies do people have? Because I wasn't sure what I would even want to try to do. So one of the things that came up was knitting and crochet. I had a very, very short-term experience with knitting years ago, probably over 10 years ago at this point. And so I thought, since I have at least a slight, vague understanding of knitting, I should try crochet, because I never really tried it. So back over 10 years ago, when I had attempted knitting, I also had some old crochet hooks and a couple of balls of yarn that have at that point probably hadn't been touched for over 10 years. So I just YouTubed beginner crochet tutorial, and one of the beginner suggestions was to learn how to do a granny square, and it kept me very focused because I did not know how to do anything. I didn't know how to crochet. I didn't know how to hold the hook. I didn't know how to hold the yarn. I didn't know the names of the techniques or the stitches. I quite literally didn't know anything. And it required all of my attention and my focus. And before I knew it, I wasn't thinking about the things that were upsetting me anymore. I felt free of the pain and mental anguish that I was going through. So, crochet really took my life by storm. After that day, I did it all the time, as often as I could. I tried to learn as much as I could. I just really fell in love with the hobby. It was a lot of fun, still is. And it kept my hands busy and my mind relaxed, which I think we all need that sometimes. So, fast forward 3 years later, and many crochet projects accomplished, I started to feel like I would like to have a new challenge. I still love crochet. Crochet will always be my first love, but I wanted to try something new. So I decided to try to knit again. And I had very vaguely, for a short amount of time, knit when I was in high school. Very short amount of time. And it was basically like starting from the beginning, except I did have some understanding of hooks and needles at that point and yarn, thanks to my experience with crochet. Every so often you gotta check in to make sure you're doing it correctly and not messing up the pattern or the stitches. So anyways, I picked up 2 flat needles, and for people who might not know, flat needles on knitting are just when you get 2 needles and they're basically just straight. They're not circular. Like, these are 2 small needles that are connected by a wire, so these are considered circular needles, and the flat ones are just straight and not connected. So I had aluminum flat needles. I didn't even know that circular needles existed. And when I found out about them, I found it very confusing and didn't understand how circular needles could be worked at all. It all seemed very intimidating to me. So I looked up beginner knitting tutorial, and the first thing that you have to learn how to do is cast on stitches. Basically, these loops that you see on the needle, those initial hooks that start everything, those are your cast-ons. So I look up a tutorial on how to cast on, and none of it is clicking for me, and I don't know why, but I couldn't get anything properly cast on. I had been trying for about an hour and I couldn't get it to work. And I began to feel very frustrated and disappointed in myself because, like I said, I've been crocheting for 3 years, and I expected more from myself. And so it was very frustrating. And I put the needles down, and I thought, I'm never going to pick up knitting again. It's just not for me, and I don't want to do it ever again. Obviously, that thought did not last. And thank God too, because I actually really enjoy knitting, and in some ways, maybe because it's new to me, I kind of like it a little bit more in some ways, more than crochet in some ways. In other ways, I feel like crochet is a bit better. It just really depends. Crochet kind of feels like an all-in-one experience because you can replicate the look of knitting, you can replicate the look of cables, all of the things that you would have to do with 2 needles can be replicated with just 1 hook. And the neat thing about crochet is that it cannot be replicated, at least as of right now, cannot be replicated by a machine, unlike knitting. So there's something that feels kind of special about being able to have a crochet garment, knowing that it can really only be accomplished by hands, by the human touch. But there's something really satisfying about the glide and speed of knitting, and just the handover and toss over of the yarn. It's just very, very, very satisfying. So, how did I pick up knitting again? After I swore it off and said I would never, never try again. Well, I think a part of me in the back of my mind knew that I was going to try again. I was just very angry and upset because I was hoping that it would come to me very easily, and it didn't, and that was disappointing. But a couple days later, after I purchased some circular needles, I decided to try again, and I still couldn't. After the second try, I could not, and I got frustrated again. And then I took about maybe a month off of trying, and I came back after a month, and I just found the tutorial that worked for me and my brain, and I was able to do it, and it clicked, and it made sense in a way that it was not clicking or making sense. And so I was very grateful to that lady, I believe she was Irish or Scottish, I'm not sure. She had put a tutorial together, and that was the tutorial that made everything click for me. So, as of now, I haven't officially completed any knitting project. Technically, I have. I did a balaclava, but it was way too small, and it's not very functional. But this is me attempting to do the balaclava again, and this is a 2x2 ribbed stitch for the neck part. Part of me is not sure that this is also right, because it feels really big. The first time felt so small, and now this feels way too big. But I'm following a tutorial that I found on YouTube by Emma, aka Made in the Moment. So that's it for this video. I don't know that I have a future in ASMR, but I just wanted to have something to help me process what's happening, and I love talking about fiber arts because it's my passion.